Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. This is a place of inspiration, education, and hope for a healthier, more compassionate, and sustainable world. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a holistic psychologist and wellness educator of over 30 years who is committed to inclusivity and empowerment. I'm not afraid to talk about the issues that matter most, even topics that may be less comfortable to discuss. On this program, I invite change makers, international leaders in the field of health and the environment, and inspirational everyday heroes to share their knowledge, experiences, and wisdom with you. My purpose for doing this is to help you in your efforts to change your own life, but also to help harness the growing vision for change to make the world a better place for everyone. To make a donation to support the continuance of this program, or if you have products or services that you would like to share with my wonderful audience as a sponsor or advertiser, please go to the TheresaNicassio.com website. That's Theresa with an H, Nicassio with an N like Nancy, one C, and two S's. That's TheresaNicassio.com, that website, and click on the donate button at the bottom of the page. With well over 1 million monthly listeners to the network, syndicated around the world, and over 63,000 monthly listeners to my show alone, it's a wonderful vehicle to spread the word about your business. You can also email me directly at Theresa@TheresaNicassio.com, or even easier, just click on the Ask Theresa tab that's at the top of my website. Be sure to join us next week when Shirley Plant's going to be with us. She's going to talk about how you can prevent sitting disease. This is like a growing problem. Then in 2 weeks, I'll have with me nutritionist and filmmaker Cindy O'Meara talking about the terrific new movie you've probably been hearing about. It's called What's with Wheat. If you haven't yet seen the movie, this is one. I'm telling you guys, you do not want to miss this movie. I'm just telling the whole world about this movie. It's crazy, informative, and great. And let's see, you'll hear more about it on the show. But anyway, it's now available on Netflix, Amazon, iTunes, and many other places. It's just lots of places. Yeah, I think YouTube as well. For today, though, I'm super excited to introduce to you a very special guest who I met just earlier this year when we were both privileged to have been honored as finalists at the Canadian Mompreneur Awards in Toronto, Canada. While her normal stomping ground is here in North America in the Ontario zone, today Michelle Emson is joining us all the way from Slovenia. I love this. This is so exciting. I mean, this is the Jetsons life we're living here. As a trans mompreneur, mental health and LGBTQI human rights activist and documentary filmmaker, there are countless things that we could discuss today, Michelle and I. But for today's interview, we've narrowed it down, and Michelle's going to be focusing primarily on her story and sharing some of the challenges facing the trans community as a whole, as well as some of the wonderful positive trends that are also emerging. Getting a little bit of good news right in here, too, quite a bit of good news. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us, even while fighting a really nasty cold.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, Theresa, and it really is truly an honor and a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, great. Well, as you know from probably listening to some of the other programs, I love to start with really getting, and this whole show is going to be pretty much about very personal. But if you can start talking a little bit about, your life has been filled with some, whole lot of trials and tribulations and triumphs and great things. Can you start with sharing with our listeners today just a little bit about your journey so they get an introduction to who you are?
Oh, I can, yes. So I identify as a transgender woman, and what that really means is that from a very young age, I experienced what we are currently calling gender dysphoria. And what that means is that my sense of identity, my sense of self, was not congruent with my physicality, right? So, I was born an otherwise healthy male baby, and naturally was gendered as a boy at birth. But the reality of that didn't emerge until a few years later, and I started to realize that there was something really quite different about me, but I had no idea how to articulate it. I had no idea that there was anybody else in the world that felt the way that I did. We had no Google. We had no Internet. There was no source of information as there is today. There was no I Am Jazz on TV for us to get some inspirational insight as to what it is to be transgender. So instead what I did was I internalized it. And I internalized it as transphobia, as homophobia, as disgusting, as weird, as sick, as all these nasty, negative kinds of words, emotions, and feelings, and carried that with me for the better part of 50 years.
Wow.
Until finally the pressure cooker blew, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I just needed to step into my true authentic self, and it was a long journey. It took over 3 years, seeking help, actually looking for a cure, which was, a bizarre concept, but nevertheless I was doing that because by this time I had a wife and children, or stepchildren, 6 grandchildren. I had a career. From the outside looking in, I had it made. I had everything that anybody would normally aspire to, but inside I was a wreck. I was deeply, deeply struggling with this incongruence between the way that I was presenting to the world and how I truly felt about myself. And there's a cute little phrase that I use now in my talks, and it basically says that for the first 50 years I was dressing up like a guy. And where I really now have stepped into my true self, and I stopped that dreadful behavior, and I'm just me, and I love it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful and so inspiring. And, really, even when I hear you use the words as a psychologist, I know that psychology historically has been a part of colluding with the lack of acceptance and acknowledgement of the reality that there can be this discrepancy between one's physiological sexual anatomy and and who they really are. And so when you use that word like you were quote unquote looking for a cure, that just made me cringe. I'm thinking it's like that. If that isn't a reflection of internal rejection, and it makes my heart ache because it speaks volumes.
It does, and during those years, during those transition years, I call them the sort of 3 years, I spent a lot of time with psychotherapists, an absolutely amazing psychotherapist, I have to say. It took me, I burned through 4 others before I found one that I really resonated with and that really understood my journey. It was very hard, even, just that short while ago. This was 2010-ish, so 7 years ago. Very hard to find a professional that had the experience to help me. And I found her quite by accident, but I probably put about 100 hours in, and I would frequently walk, particularly early on, would walk into her office and start our conversation with cure me, right? Find it, give me a pill, just do something here to cure me, because at that point, I'd been harboring all of these feelings, and I guess deep inside I knew now what I needed to do, but the penalty by then was so huge, and as I predicted, I lost my partner of 20-plus years. I lost my 2 stepchildren. I lost my 6 grandchildren. I ended up losing my career, lost my house. So there was a lot of loss in all of that.
Wow.
And, the transition year itself, 2011, that was the big year for me. And I remember I popped back into my therapist's office late that year. We really hadn't been doing much during that year because the work was done. But I walked back into her office one day and I sat down just for a follow-up call and I sort of said, cure me. And she said, without batting an eyelid, I think we've done that. And she was right. But you're absolutely right. One of the things to pick up on here is that for way too long, gender dysphoria was considered a mental disorder. And in fact, it's unfortunate that it still sits pathologized in the Diagnostic Statistics Manual under mental disorders. And of course, as activists, we're working to change that. And we're seeing changes throughout Europe. There's several European countries that have already taken steps to depathologize gender dysphoria. And because we now know that it is not a mental disorder and it is not something that can be cured by any means of psychiatry or therapy. We've come to learn that now, and we have alternative treatments that help us step into our true selves.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to hear about the activism around that because, the DSM, that gives people diagnoses. For those of you who are listening, this is when you get a quote-unquote diagnostic label, it usually comes from this book that is created by a group of people. And these people have their own internal biases, their own internal homophobias, their own internal sexism, their own internal racisms, all kinds of discriminatory thought processes. Not that every person on the committee is like that, but the point is it's colored very much so by socio-political beliefs and habits and so forth. And so, especially there's been a lot of work in terms of some of the things that have been gender and racial discriminatory perspectives in the DSM, and this is another one of those uncharted territories that needs to be addressed. So I'm so glad to hear about some of that work that's happening. You're talking about this, the losses that ended up happening. But I'm just curious about, in that work you did with that therapist for those 3 years, and ultimately the work you did in your own soul, in your own heart. What led you, Michelle, to finally take that courageous step into living as the woman that you've always been?
I think it just got to the point where I couldn't hide any longer. I became very, very aware. I lost my sister to cancer in 1997. She died shortly before her 30th birthday 20 years ago. And that was a big wake-up call for me. It would still take me another 10 years to do very much about it, but it was a wake-up call for me that said that, I have this gift of life. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm struggling with it, and I was also dealing with some mental health issues, too, quite separately, and I think we're going to chat about that. But, what I really come to understand was that I had this gift of life that Sarah no longer did. And I think it was important that I acknowledged that and that I did something about it. Mm-hmm. And really, until that point, I think I was in very, very deep denial. I was still very deep in this internalized transphobia that I had taken on during puberty, at least first time through puberty. And I had done it so well, and I had realized that the way that I was going to succeed in society, growing up in a relatively conservative English, middle-class home, I just come to that breaking point, and I just had to deal with it. Otherwise, I think it was going to kill me. It really was. It affected depression. It affected my life on so many levels, and it was a challenge. It really was a challenge. Yeah. And that's my personal journey. Many people come on this journey in fairly different ways. Mm-hmm. There's as much a spread, a spectrum of experience, mm-hmm. as there is this spectrum of gender identity and expression.
Totally. And, we are who we are. We have whatever our story is. But then when we have stresses and strains that are added to it, whether it's trauma, whether it's rejection, and one of my biggest passions is around acceptance and reducing exclusion and increasing inclusivity, increasing inclusion, because the harmful effects of being rejected, of not being included. Those are two different things, but they can overlap. Basically being bullied. A lot of people don't realize how that whether the person does or does not have already a pre-existing internal challenge emotionally, even if they don't, they're more likely going to have it, or it's going to trigger whatever the struggle they have, or it's going to make it worse. What we say, what we believe, how we treat each other, whether we love or accept, it really does matter. It matters hugely.
It does matter hugely, and we see this. I do a lot of work with school boards and schools and children, supporting our youth going through some of these journeys, but also working with the broader spectrum of youth around bullying, because there's almost always an intersect between bullying and homophobia and transphobia and so on. Mm-hmm. And the bullies often themselves are sometimes bullied. But bullies, but that characteristic behavior is very damaging on an individual, regardless of the reason for the bullying. Mm-hmm. And it has a very significant impact on our emotional well-being. Mm-hmm. And as you say, regardless of whether or not you have a pre-existing condition, somebody that's mentally very healthy can still be emotionally traumatized by this kind of bullying.
Yeah.
And we think about bullying in the context of schools and school children and so on, but actually bullying extends way into our adult life. We experience it in the workplace, we experience it in social settings, and all too often LGBTQI community will experience this kind of systemic bullying on a scale that we wouldn't see in other areas of society.
Yeah, and I think this is part of, giving, so we talked about the DSM, I think this is part of what has created some of the confusion, perhaps, in the psychological world, is because when the other factors come in, then it makes it easier to pathologize, right? When someone's having a hard time, well, they may be having a hard time because the world is not being a friendly place to them. And so there's all kinds of reasons why that makes all the sense in the world of trying to cope. But also, with the whole bullying piece, it's another reason, thinking about what took you 50 years before you were able to get to this point, that, when it's like you think you're looking at what are the consequences if I do live who I really am. And it leads you to drive that part of yourself even deeper into that place of rejection and darkness, and because you don't want to, and you kept saying, cure me, change me, and fortunately you found a therapist who said, no, I mean, the cure is stepping into being who you really are, is what, I presume is what she said.
That's exactly what she said. Or at least that's what I said, because, very often the psychotherapists are not actually going to tell you what to do here. They wait for you to discover it. And what she did was she gave that environment where I could explore how I was feeling and my choices and my options, and decide what it was I wanted to do for the second half of my life, right? So I had that opportunity. Yeah. And it's so important. And, even from a healthcare perspective, it's so critical that we have experienced, well-educated healthcare professionals, because I all too often, even still in Canada and very much so elsewhere in the world, encounter healthcare professionals who are themselves homophobic or transphobic, and actually giving some very dangerous and poor advice to people that are trying to deal with these kinds of situations. Yeah, and I think that's a real shame. That's something, there are many areas of work that are going on, and that's a very important one.
Yeah, it totally is. And again, this is I think I willed you into my life because I was like, I want to have someone who can come and speak about this. Such an important topic. It's a gap in my show. And then literally that very next day, I discovered you. And anyway, it's like, how did this happen? It's pretty awesome. I know we don't have a lot of time before the break, but real quickly, because this is, I think, we could talk a lot about it, but there's also a pretty simple angle to this. Is because there's a lot of confusion about. A lot of the people who are listening today may be wondering, well, what's the difference between gender identity? You hear gender identity, gender expression. You hear about sexual identity, sexual behavior, sexual expression. Can you talk a little bit about, just demystify some of that about what the differences are, in a Reader's Digest form?
Yeah, I can. Reader's Digest form. Gender identity is not a choice. Gender identity is that innate sense of self. It's our psyche, it's our soul, it's in our mind, and it's in our hearts. It's who we truly are. This is quite distinct from sexual orientation. And there's quite a cute little phrase that goes around that says that gender identity is who you go to bed as, and sexual orientation is who you go to bed with.
I love that. I just love that.
All too often when I use that in my talks, you see the penny drop. Sexual orientation, quite similarly, is not a choice. You are born with that sense of orientation of who you really do not have a choice with who you are attracted to. You don't. And we've all experienced it in our lives with our loves and our partners that we have that feeling, and that feeling is not something you can construct. Our gender expression, on the other hand, is something that we have a choice about. How we show up in the world, what we care to wear, how we wear our hair, whether we paint our nails. All of these kinds of things represent our expression of our gender. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, a lot of us don't even think about it. We just get up and we do it, right? Mm-hmm. But those that are experiencing any kind of gender dysphoria, this is a challenge. And like I said, for the first 50 years of my life, I was expressing myself in a non-authentic way. It wasn't representative of who I truly was. It was what I needed to do to get on in society. And I was surrounded by homophobia and transphobia, even passive homophobia growing up and throughout most of my adult life. Mm-hmm. So, every time that happened, that kind of drove me in deeper and deeper.
Right.
So that's kind of a nutshell.
Yeah, great nutshell, and just in time for the break. So folks will be back with Michelle after the break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit yumfoodforliving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
For all your live or pre-recorded webcasting needs, come to earthchannel.com. Get your web-based message out to a select group or the whole world. It's easy. A pioneer in webcasting, earthchannel.com provides the best products and services to big corporations and government users. And now this same technology is available to you. They have the best Earthcast encoders, servers, and products to meet your technical needs. But wait, don't want to mess with technical stress? No problem. They'll do it for you. EarthChannel.com is your answer. You can use webcasting for lots of things like advertising, marketing, customer support, training, and don't forget web radio and TV. In fact, you're listening to a live Earthcast right now. So come to EarthChannel.com. Actualize your audio or video webcasting needs today. You can't beat the friendly service or the price. Call earthchannel.com at 1-800-849-8978. That's 1-800-849-8978.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
If you like to spend your television viewing time learning about some of the things that you may have missed in history class, or if history was your favorite subject, then you should check out the link to the History Channel on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page. Order DVD sets by series or by subject matter right from our homepage while you still enjoy your favorite HealthyLife.net show.
You're listening to HealthyLife.net, the radio network that brings positive talk with positive change to make your world a little better.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. For those of you who are just joining us, on today's show, we're really lucky to have trans mompreneur and LGBTQI human rights activist with us, Michelle Emson, sharing her story. And before the break, she was talking, about the big picture and some of the journey. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing, Michelle, to talk a little bit, because you mentioned briefly, you said there were a lot of losses, and about with regard to losing your partner of over 20 years. Or can you just talk a little bit more about your losses, and then also about some of the employment? Because you mentioned you lost your job, and we could talk a little bit about the employment implications as well that have come up through this journey.
Yeah, I think the employment one is a really important issue, actually, and it's one that we're not really addressing near enough at this point. And one of the reasons for that is I mentioned that I work a lot with youth, and we're very supportive of our youth right the way through the school system now, through university. But when they hit the employment market, they're going to find a challenge. Unless you're working for one of the big companies such as TD Bank or IBM or, one of these huge companies where they're able to fund an office of inclusivity and diversity. Where they have those offices, they have the policies, then typically they have a far more inclusive workforce. When you look at that middle sector, and I call it the Chamber of Commerce sector, so this is small to medium-sized enterprises, they do not necessarily have these fundamental inclusive policies. Sometimes they don't even know that they should, or that there's even legislation that requires them to be inclusive in many parts of Canada in particular.
Wow.
So that's a real challenge there, and that's one, I'll often get out and speak to chambers of commerce on this subject, just in order to try and raise more awareness in that large sector of employment opportunity. I found post-transition, I found it very difficult, in fact, nigh on impossible to secure employment, and ended up getting in quite a tricky spot. And in the end, I created Sanctuary Studios because I needed a vehicle. I needed some way of being employed, and I wasn't able to get that employment, and so I needed to create it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's a real struggle. And oftentimes, and we'll see this, unfortunately, is that particularly around trans women, far too often they will end up in sex work. They'll end up in dangerous situations. A study that was done in Canada is an interesting one, Trans Pulse. It was done a number of years ago now, but what it shared was that over 60% of trans women in Ontario earned less than $20,000 a year.
Wow.
So
over 60%.
Kind of yeah. So the vast majority of trans women trying to work in Ontario were earning less than $20,000 a year. Wow. And, you can't survive on that in Ontario.
No, it's like poverty. Either you live who you are and you live in poverty, or you live a lie and, try to, it's like so many layers there. So, with regard to this challenge and, around employment. You were mentioning that there's some companies who have inclusivity policies. Can you talk a little bit about, because this is one of the things that I was really excited to when you and I were chatting about you coming on the show, was that there's some really beautiful initiatives, and actually one of the initiatives that is really beautiful that actually connected you and I was the Mompreneurs group. Can you talk a little bit about how Canadian Mompreneurs is really stepping forward and being leaders in the world around inclusivity and embracing that?
I can. How I'm going to do this in a nutshell is going to be a tricky one. The journey with Mompreneurs was really beautiful. I was living in Milton. Actually, I pretty much transitioned in Milton, Ontario, and I believe Milton's first openly out trans woman.
In the whole city?
And in the whole city, yeah.
Wow.
Which, when I started was at around 37,000 people. It's now upwards of 120,000 people. It's the fastest growing community in Canada.
Oh, wow.
And, one of the things that I did was that I just kept showing up. I kept showing up at the grocery store. I kept showing up at the coffee shop. And most importantly is I kept showing up to community events. I engaged with the community. I gave back in the community. And as a result of doing that, I made a lot of friends over a period of time. And amongst those friends was Maria Locker, who is the CEO of Mompreneurs, as well as a number of other amazing women in the Milton entrepreneur community.
Now, I just want to interject here. For those of you who are in Canada, Maria Locker she's a total rock star, and we can talk on and on about her, but I just want to say that this Canadian Mompreneurs is an organization you're going to want to check out. And the other thing I'll mention before you carry on around this is that you don't even have to be a mom. It's because they also understand that not everybody's able to be a physical mom, but it's really about women. But they wanted to incorporate also the mom experience as well as the woman experience. So I just want to say that if you are a woman and you're in Canada, check it out. So go ahead with your. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in.
No, absolutely, and really check it out because Mompreneurs is a great community of talented and inspirational women entrepreneurs, and I'm so honored to have been included in that circle, and I have many, many, many great friends that have come to me through Mompreneurs, and it really is the epitome of inclusivity. Even to the point, you referred earlier to the awards this year being nominated for the Momentum Award was such a deep honor for me, as you can imagine. And I was talking to Maria and to Rania Walker, Maria's PR specialist, around, whether we should lead or not with the trans issue, right? And they felt they did not want to, and the reason was it had no bearing on either my membership as a Mompreneur or on my nomination. And I was just so deeply touched by that.
So nice.
And I know that, in my press releases I did lead with it because it passed on a very important message to the trans community.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really, really deeply touched by that, and I've been deeply touched by the amazing women that have welcomed me into the Mompreneurs fold. Yeah. Yeah.
So a great example, folks. There's so many ways that you may not even think about that we can be allies and really step up to the plate. We're going to have to take a break, but real quick, I think you also mentioned Shopify. Are there any other businesses that you know of who are doing some good work around inclusivity?
There are many good businesses, far too many to name. Okay. There's great organizations as well that cover the employment space, and it's Out at Work is one of them. I think is in the U.S. I think we have Pride at Work is the Canadian organization, and they work extensively with companies to help through these issues of sexual orientation and gender identity and making that an inclusive workplace environment.
Okay, great. Maybe if you're able to pull together any of those links, then I can add them to your profile page on the TheresaNicassio.com site. So, folks, already another break time, if you can believe it. So don't go away. Again, we're going to have more with Michelle. We're going to hear a little bit about Project Semicolon when we come back, and also really get some more clarity about what acceptance really is. All right. When we come back, we'll talk to you in a bit.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
What does HealthyLife.net and Amazon.com have in common? Well, they're both available on the Internet. They both give great value. But most important, most of our positive program hosts and guests are accomplished authors, and their books are available from, you got it, Amazon.com. Now, it even gets better than that, because when you're listening on air to a HealthyLife.net host or guest, you can go directly to Amazon.com, and you can order your book while you're still listening to your favorite HealthyLife.net program. So when you hear an author you like, go to the homepage of HealthyLife.net and click on Amazon.com.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy, allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of Yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. Today we have with us trans mompreneur Michelle Emson talking about her life experiences, discoveries, and insights. And in the first 2 seconds we've been talking about a lot of different things about the journey. But one of the things that Michelle had I'd never heard of, but there's there's an organization called Project Semicolon. I've also seen a Semicolon project. This issue around mental health, that one of the things as psychologists that I know is that the numbers for those who are LGBTQI, with this whole journey, that the numbers of suicidal attempts and actually completed suicides way outnumbers in the general population. And some of the things that we've been talking about today, and all the losses and all the inner difficulty accepting oneself, a lot of things can contribute to it. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this whole issue, Michelle, and also then share a little bit about what Project Semicolon is about.
Yes, of course. I came across Project Semicolon a few years ago, and it was very significant to me. It actually started out as a faith-based initiative, but it's now, with the power of the Internet, been really taken over and is no longer necessarily faith-based. And it really is just a case of understanding what a semicolon means in the context of suicide and our lives. And a semicolon is used when an author doesn't actually want to finish a sentence. If he still has a thought that is a continuum. And the metaphor is that the semicolon indicates that our life is not over. This is not the end of my story. I do not have to end my life and therefore insert a period into my life story at this point in time. Instead, I can say, new chapter, let's move on, right? Let's. So, and it came at a time for me when I was truly struggling. And you're absolutely right in your opener that the incidence of suicide attempts and suicides amongst the LGBTQ community, particularly amongst our youth, is disproportionately high, in order of magnitude above the general population. And we see that when we look at some of the causes for this. We can see that the homophobia, the transphobia, the bullying that goes on, the harassment that goes on, far exceeds the incidence of harassment for the general population.
Yeah.
So it's little wonder that LGBTQ youth in particular, but this also applies to adults, of course, experience this kind of pressure and this kind of emotional burden. And sometimes, honestly, truly, it can be a struggle to want to carry on.
Yeah.
And the semicolon is symbolic of saying, we can do this. We can carry on. It doesn't have to stop here.
Yeah. Well, I just think, your life is living proof of this, Michelle. And one of the things that some people may be wondering is, how is it and why would you be, stepping up and being so open in sharing your story with the world? And I think this might be part of it. Is this connected, you think? Is part of, what's after the semicolon is making a difference?
I think it is part of it. The other part goes back to the loss. A lot of LGBTQ people will not necessarily be visible. Maybe they won't march in Pride. Maybe they won't go to LGBTQ events because they're trying to either hide their identity in order to get on with their lives or whatever. I reached the point where I lost everything. And for me, I suddenly realized, actually, it was a couple of friends of mine, other mompreneurs, actually, who encouraged me to share my story with the idea that it would help others. And at that point, I had nothing left to lose. Being visible was not going to cost me anything. And that was really the start of my advocacy work, and then my activism work really came from that.
Wow.
And part of the reason for that is that we know that any minority is never going to get widespread acceptance unless it's visible. If it's a totally invisible minority existing within a community or within a society, then we'll have the situation like we have in Chechnya right now, where the authorities say that there are no LGBTQ people in our republic, so how can we be persecuting gays? We don't have any.
Right, yes, huge.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about widespread acceptance. I wonder if you could talk about it, because, acceptance, it's a word that we throw around. It's kind of like the word love or happy. But I think most people don't really fully understand what acceptance is. And sometimes, it's not uncommon for it to be confused with tolerance, amongst other things. Can you, I know you have a little kind of a 5-stage model about acceptance. And would you be willing to share a little bit about that?
Of course I would, and I can preface it with a phrase that I use that says that if we can come to love and respect our own uniqueness, then perhaps we can come to respect the uniqueness of others.
Yes.
And I use the pebble metaphor when I'm working with youth, and it's great because I challenge the youth to dig through a bucket of pebbles that I bring to class and to find me 2 identical ones. And, of course, they never can. They try very hard. I have to give them that. And just like pebbles, as human beings, there are no 2 identical. So we're all very unique. But that acceptance, like I said, starts with visibility. It really does. With visibility, that raises awareness. People become aware of the minority, whatever it is, because it's somewhat visible. Even if it's a Pride March, we become aware of LGBTQ, at least for the month of June during Pride. Mm-hmm. That awareness, because we're curious creatures, forces us or encourages us to do some learning. And through that learning, we reach understanding. So visibility takes us to awareness. Awareness goes to understanding. And when we come to understand somebody else's lived experience, to some extent at least, then we can reach acceptance of that. We can reach acceptance of the people around us because we can respect their uniqueness. And it doesn't make you gay just because you read about it. But you can come to
right.
Trust me, we've had that. But instead you can, through education, through awareness, we can reach acceptance. And we know that homophobia and transphobia and so on is oftentimes. And I'm not referring to ignorance in a derogatory sense. I'm not calling people ignorant. It's just that maybe they have not had an experience. Maybe they don't have somebody in their immediate circle from whom they can garner that kind of exposure and experience.
Well, if it's never been visible to them, how can they, right? They don't even know it exists.
Exactly, and that's why through my talks I put a face to it and share my lived experience as a way of breaking down that barrier. Right.
And then you get to acceptance, and then there's the level of the ally. Can you just really briefly, because we have to go to a break in a moment here, just really briefly?
Yeah. That next level, taking us from acceptance to allyship. An ally is somebody who will stand up for the minority even when the minority is not present. So if you hear a homophobic joke or a transphobic joke, you will call it out, even though there may not be a trans or a homosexual person in the vicinity. Yeah, beautiful. So that's the true act.
Kind of that getting rid of that bystander effect that happens in social situations as well. So exactly. Wonderful. All right. Well, we do need to go to another break. After the break, we'll be Michelle's going to be sharing a little bit about her. She's an award-winning filmmaker. You may not know that, a documentary filmmaker that's won the great award. And she's also going to talk about ways that you can support your friends, family, and colleagues who you may not know how to, because this is all new for you. So come back after the break. We'll be right back.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit yumfoodforliving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
If you're like the 8 out of 10 women that say finding jeans that fit is a problem, well, your problem is solved. Lee Jeans has done extensive research, and they have jeans that fit. There's even an online Lee Fit Finder, so you can find the right fit for you. Imagine jeans that instantly slim you with a custom fit and no gap waistband. And guys, kids, Lee has jeans for you too. Click through to Lee's Jeans on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and get what fits.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463. There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back. back. You're listening to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show, where we celebrate life, love, and kindness while also acknowledging the real challenges that are a natural part of living and answer questions that matter to you. If you're just tuning in, we're here today with Michelle Emson, a courageous woman sharing about her own experiences and wisdom about living as a trans woman and ways that we can learn to embrace ourselves and each other with full acceptance and love. Just really on this front of the work that you're doing, Michelle, can you talk a little bit about the movie work that you've been doing? Because this is very exciting.
Yes, yeah, it is exciting, and you know what? Just like so many other things, it was never in my life plan. Mm-hmm. I never had these aspirations to become a documentary filmmaker, and it wasn't until I met my partner, Elena, at World Pride in 2014 that the two of us hatched this plan to create a documentary which explored the life of Kiev Pride. Mm-hmm. So Elena is Ukrainian, a 20-year Ukrainian activist, and together we created this documentary which shared the struggle of holding a march of equality in Kiev, which started in 2012. Elena was one of the founding members. And explored that through. And in fact, just out of interest, yesterday was Kiev Pride 2017. Wow. But it's a very different experience. And let me share that the first Kiev Pride that happened in 2013, 2012 did not happen. 2013, 100 people were allowed to march 300 meters, surrounded by around 1,500 riot police to protect them from the onslaught of homophobic opposition.
Oh, my gosh.
That's a very different Pride experience than we would enjoy in Toronto or Vancouver or anywhere else in the Western world.
Is that where the pictures of
that
photos
really
are?
Inspired me. Excuse me?
Those are the photos that are on the profile page that you sent me.
There's some photos there. There are some photos of Kiev Pride. There are some photos of Toronto Pride. So Elena and I met when 4 Kiev Pride founders were brought across to the World Pride Human Rights Conference in Toronto back in 2014. Okay. So that's probably some of the images that we have. Okay. Plus, Elena and I went on to create Kiev Pride Canada, which is a non-profit organization which bridges that gap between the LGBTQ and Ukrainian communities. And so that's really how things started. And I went on then to create Transgender Life in Slovenia. I happened to find myself in Slovenia for a while last year, lived here for the better part of a year. And during that time, working with the local trans organization, we explored the lived experience of 10 transgender and gender non-binary people from right across the country, which was very inspiring to learn of their experiences, and for them, very brave and courageous of them to share them on film. And that was the film that went on to win the Audience Award for Best Film at the Ljubljana International Film Festival here last December, yeah.
Nice. So there's links for those films or information about those films right on the TheresaNicassio.com website on Michelle's page that is there, and lots of amazing and beautiful images of Michelle and some of the work she's doing, and lots of links, which we will probably be adding more links for trans support over time. So be sure to keep visiting that. But, I'd like to take a little bit of time, if we could, to talk a little bit about some of the ways that, for those of you who are listening, Michelle, what are some ways to best support LGBTQI friends, family, and colleagues? Because this is for some people where it hasn't been something that was so visible in their life, and then maybe a family member, if not themselves, finds themselves, in a situation with a colleague. Or what do you recommend? What are some things that people can do, and maybe what are some things not to do?
I think the first thing is to recognize that we are all beautiful individual human beings, regardless of any of the traits and variances that make us who we uniquely are. And those variances may be color, they may be height, they may be weight, they may be hair color, they may be all these different variables that go to make up the human condition. And your, one sexual orientation or gender identity is no different to any of those. And like I said earlier, they are not choices. These are things that, traits and characteristics that we are born with. And it's only through the oppression of society around us that oftentimes stops us from expressing authentically our true selves. So the real key thing, if you're looking to help anybody, is to educate. There's some great resources, and like you said, there's a whole pile of links on the page that you've created for me, which is just awesome, by the way. And that will link you through to a whole lot more. And just be open. Just be open to that variability of the human condition. Be open, be compassionate, and be willing to learn. And, oftentimes creating a safe space for somebody can go a long way to giving them that sense of well-being and that confidence that you have their backs. And I think one of the most important things to remember, and this is a really key one, is the only person who should ever out you, right? So if you wish to come out as a trans whatever, the only person who should do that is you as the individual. Nobody else should out you, whether it's publicly or privately or in secret or whatever. That conversation is a very private one, and it happens at a time when the individual is comfortable with sharing their authentic self. And just because they share that with you doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to share it with anybody else.
Yeah, wonderful. Those are great tips. So, Michelle, you do some great speaking, and again, a bunch of Michelle's YouTubes, a lot of her talking events and other appearances. The YouTubes are actually, I've hyperlinked them, I embedded them right on her page, on the TheresaNicassio.com page. There's also links to her website, Facebook, all kinds of Facebook, and Instagram, all kinds of social media, lots and lots of connections, and then also her website. So if someone wants to contact you, maybe to have you be a speaker for their group, or if there's someone in the media who'd like you to share more about what you do, what's the best way to contact you, Michelle?
The easiest way by far, actually, is michelleemson.ca or sanctuary-studios.ca. But Sanctuary Studios is now a social enterprise, and so through that website there's a great contact form, and that includes speaker appearances, workshops, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! So if there's any other links that I don't have on there, or emails, whatever, send those to me, Michelle. But folks,
I absolutely will.
Yeah, and Michelle's going to be off to New York at a Pride event there next week, is it, or this week?
Yes, it's this week. So this week is Pride Week in both Toronto and New York, and we'll be having the Pride March coming up at the weekend. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Well, folks, we got to go. I hope you've enjoyed this show. Thank you for joining us, Michelle. And
thank you so much for having me.
And if there's any questions, let me know. But this is Theresa, and this has been the Dr. Theresa Nicassio. So until next time, have a great week.